Hi, today's story is he cheated while I was pregnant. His mother said I was overreacting, so I sold the house they were living in. The glass was thick enough to mute the sound, but it couldn't hide the smile. It was 11:47 on a Wednesday night, and the fluorescent lights of the recovery room at Good Samaritan Hospital hummed with that specific headache-inducing vibration that exists only in places where people are trying not to die. My daughter Emma was sleeping in a clear plastic bassinet 2 steps away from my bed, wrapped so tightly she looked like a little burrito. The heart monitor next to me kept time with a steady rhythmic beep that usually faded into the background, but right now it sounded like a countdown. I shifted my weight, wincing as the fresh stitches across my lower abdomen pulled tight. The pain was sharp, a hot wire stretching inside me, but it wasn't what kept me awake. My husband was standing in the hallway. Kyle stood about 30 feet from the door just past the nurse's station. He had his back to the wall, one hand casually tucked into the pocket of his jeans, the other holding his phone to his ear. He looked relaxed, loose, and he was laughing. It wasn't a loud laugh, I could tell by the way his shoulders shook gently, but it wasn't a polite laugh either. It was the kind of laugh you save for someone who knows your inside jokes. I watched him for 5 seconds. Just watched. The antiseptic smell of the room, the sharp mixture of floor wax and rubbing alcohol, seemed to get stronger. My hand moved to the bedside table, and my fingers brushed against the cold metal of my phone. It felt heavier than usual. For 6 months, I had told myself I was just tired. Pregnancy brain, paranoia. The late nights at the office were just the end of quarter rush. The way he took his phone into the bathroom for 40 minutes was just him playing games or reading news. The way he was physically present in a room but emotionally 1,000 miles away was just stress about the baby. But looking at him now, through a pane of glass, in a quiet hospital wing in Cincinnati, all those small jagged pieces of glass suddenly fit together to form a mirror. He wasn't talking to a client in Texas. I picked up my phone. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I swiped up, tapped the camera icon, and switched to video. My thumb hit the red button. 7 years in real estate teaches you one thing above all else. Document everything. If it is not on paper, if it is not recorded, it did not happen. On the screen, the image was crisp. Kyle turned slightly, offering his profile to the camera. He said something short. 3 words. I couldn't read his lips perfectly, but I saw the way his face softened. Then he did something that made the breath catch in my throat. He raised his free hand and drew a shape in the air. A small, quick heart. He did it unconsciously, a reflex the way you might wave at a neighbor without thinking. I kept recording. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Emma let out a small bird-like sigh in her sleep, but she didn't wake. The cart of a night shift nurse rattled past in the corridor, momentarily blocking my view, but I didn't stop filming until the cart was gone and Kyle was back in frame. At 4 minutes and 23 seconds, he finally looked at his watch. His posture changed instantly. The slum of comfortable intimacy vanished, replaced by the stiff, weary hunch of a new father. He ended the call, smoothed his shirt, and turned toward my room. I hit stop, the video saved to my cloud storage instantly. I checked the timestamp. 11:51 p.m. I slid the phone back onto the table face down and lay back against the pillows. I closed my eyes, counting the beeps of the monitor. 1, 2, 3. The door handle turned with a soft click. Kyle brought the smell of the hallway in with him, coffee and old air conditioning. He walked to the side of the bed, his footsteps soft on the linoleum. "Hey," he whispered. "You awake?" I opened my eyes. He looked tired. The performance was flawless. "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded dry like sandpaper rubbing against stone, just resting. "Sorry I'm late," he said, pulling the visitor's chair closer. That call with the partners in Texas went way longer than expected. They're on Central Time, they forget we need sleep. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead. His hand was warm, a perfectly normal, loving gesture. Yesterday, I would have leaned into it. Today, I had to concentrate on keeping my breathing steady. "It's fine," I said. 1 word, neutral. He smiled a tight, practiced expression that didn't reach his eyes and then turned to look at Emma. His face changed again. This time, the softness was real. He looked at our daughter with genuine wonder, and that was the most confusing part of the night. He loved her. I knew that. She's sleeping okay? He asked. Like a log. Good. He sat down, stretching his legs out. I'm beat. Do you mind if I just close my eyes for a minute? Go ahead, I said. Within 10 minutes, his breathing deepened into the rhythmic puff of deep sleep. I lay there in the semi-darkness, staring at the acoustic tiles of the ceiling. The pain in my stitches was a dull throb, now a constant reminder that I had been cut open to bring life into this world, while the man sleeping next to me was busy dismantling it. I didn't cry. I realized with a strange sense of detachment that I might never cry about this. Tears were for things you could fix or things you were mourning. I wasn't mourning yet. I was calculating. The house on Elmwood Drive, I bought it 4 years ago before the wedding. I paid the down payment. I paid the mortgage. His name wasn't on the deed, just mine. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 2 days, I slept. Mourning in a hospital doesn't break, it just gets louder. By 10 o'clock the next day, the room was bright with gray November light, and the air was thick with the scent of aggressive floral perfume and beef casserole. Arlene had arrived. My mother-in-law stood by the window, holding a Tupperware container that looked big enough to feed a football team. She was wearing her signature scent, white diamonds, applied with a heavy hand, and a sweater set that cost more than my first car. I told Kyle, you wouldn't be up for cooking, she announced, her voice pitching at that volume she used when she wanted the nurses down the hall to know she was a good grandmother. So I made my casserole. Plenty of sodium keeps your strength up. She set the dish on the rolling table without asking if I could eat it. I couldn't. Doctor's orders were clear about bland foods for the first few days, but Arlene rarely let facts get in the way of her helpfulness. Kyle was sitting on the edge of the bed, nodding along as Arlene pulled a notebook from her purse. Now she sat, tapping the paper with a pen. I've drafted a schedule for the first 6 weeks. I can take the morning shift from 7 to noon so you can rest. Then Kyle's cousin, Sarah, says she can drop by on Tuesdays and Thursdays for laundry. She looked at Kyle beaming. It takes a village, right? That sounds great, Mom, Kyle said. He didn't look at me. He looked relieved that someone else was handling the logistics. I sat up a little straighter, ignoring the pull in my abdomen. Arlene, that's very generous, I said. But maybe we can discuss the schedule once we get Emma home. I'd like to see what our rhythm is first before we have people coming in and out. The room went quiet. Arlene blinked her smile, freezing in place. It wasn't a frown, just a pause in the broadcast. She turned her head slowly toward Kyle. Kyle, honey, she said, her voice dropping an octave sweet as molasses. I'm just trying to help. You know how overwhelmed new mothers get. I know, Mom, Kyle said quickly. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Molly, she's just excited. Let's just play it by ear, okay? I looked at them both. The man who drew hearts in the air for someone else, and the woman who was currently planning the next 2 months of my life in my own living room. Okay, I said. I understand. I didn't say yes. I didn't say thank you. I said I understood. Neither of them noticed the difference. Arlene clapped her hands together softly. Wonderful. Oh, and before I forget, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a silver key. She walked over to the small kitchenette area in the corner of the hospital room and hung it on the hook meant for coats. I found the spare key Kyle gave me when you two moved in, she said. I'll hold on to it for now, just in case you lock yourselves out or if I need to pop in to drop off groceries while you're napping. No need to get up to answer the door. She patted Kyle on the shoulder, gave me a wave that was more dismissal than goodbye, and swept out of the room, leaving the scent of white diamonds hanging heavy in the air. I stared at the silver key glinting under the fluorescent lights. I didn't remember agreeing to that. Kyle stood up and stretched. She means well, Molly. Don't be hard on her. I'm not, I said. I looked at the key again. Then I looked at my phone on the bedside table. The video file was there, backed up, secure. I had a lot of work to do. The key on the hook stayed in my mind for 3 days, a small silver question mark hanging over everything. By the time I was discharged on Saturday, the hospital room felt less like a recovery suite and more like a waiting room for a life I wasn't sure I recognized anymore. Coming home was supposed to be a relief. It was quiet. The November air was crisp the sky, a flat heavy gray that promised snow but hadn't delivered yet. The front lawn was covered in fallen leaves that had turned from vibrant orange to a dull wet brown unraked for weeks. Inside the house smelled like stale coffee and the vague sweet scent of baby powder that seemed to have permeated the drywall in my absence. I carried Emma inside in her car seat while Kyle brought the bags. He set them down in the hallway with a heavy exhale, checking his phone immediately. "Work stuff," he muttered, catching my eye. "Sorry, it's Saturday," I said. He shrugged already, tapping out a reply. "End of year. You know how it is." I did know. I knew exactly how end-of-year crunches worked in corporate sales. I also knew they didn't involve smiling at your screen like that. I took Emma upstairs to the nursery, settled her into the crib, and stood there for a long moment listening to the soft, rhythmic hush of her breathing. Then I went into the small room down the hall that served as my home office. It was my sanctuary. A walnut desk I bought with my first big commission check, a wall of white filing cabinets, a window overlooking the neglected front yard. The late afternoon sun cut across the room, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air. I sat down in my chair, wincing slightly as my stitches pulled. I told myself I was just looking for the health insurance papers to cross-check the hospital bill. It was a lie. I knew exactly what I was looking for. My hand went to the third drawer from the top on the left side of the desk. The file was exactly where I left it, a blue folder labeled House/Property. I opened it. The smell of old paper and ink hit me, a scent I loved from my days in law school before I switched to real estate. Inside were the documents that defined the legal reality of this building, the deed, the mortgage payoff statement from 2 years ago, paid in full with money I had saved since I was 22, and a generous gift from my parents when they downsized, the certificate of title, and at the very back a single sheet of white paper with a raised notary seal. I pulled it out. A waiver of dower rights. My eyes scanned the text, though I knew what it said. In-house spouse has a legal interest in real property owned by their partner even if their name isn't on the deed. It's an old law meant to protect widows, but in modern real estate, it's a hurdle, unless they sign it away. 2 years ago when I paid off the mortgage early, the title company called. They needed Kyle to sign a standard release form to clear the title fully in my name. I remember that day clearly. I was in a closing for a client frantic with last-minute inspection issues. I had called Kyle, explained what it was, and asked him to stop by the notary on his way home. He had grumbled about the detour, but done it. He signed the paper. He probably didn't even read it. Kyle signed a lot of things without reading them. He trusted me to handle the paperwork. He trusted me to handle everything. I sat there, holding the 3 documents side by side on the desk like a winning poker hand. The deed had one name, Molly Ann Fletcher. The mortgage was paid in full, and the waiver signed and notarized in 2023 meant Kyle had legally released any claim to this property. I picked up my coffee, which had gone cold an hour ago, and took a sip. It was bitter, but it cleared my head. Kai had lived in this house for 4 years. My mother-in-law had treated it like her personal extension for 2. My daughter had been born 5 days ago, but on paper, in the eyes of the state of Ohio, this house belonged to exactly one person. And the only person who could stop me from selling it had signed away his right to do so while complaining about traffic on I-71. I took my phone out. I photographed every document, making sure the text was legible and the notary seal was clear. I emailed the files to my personal account, the one on my private server that didn't sync to the family iPad. Then I sent copies to a secure cloud folder labeled simply Taxes 2024. I put the folder back in the drawer exactly as it had been. I closed the cabinet. From the living room downstairs, I heard the sudden roar of a football crowd on the TV, followed by Kyle shouting, "Yes, go, go!" He sounded happy. He sounded like a man who thought he was sitting in his own living room, watching his team win with his wife and new baby, safely tucked away upstairs. One day I thought as I stood up and smoothed my shirt, he was going to wonder why I was smiling. Sunday morning arrived with the inevitability of a freight train. At 10 o'clock sharp, the sound of the garage door opening rumbled through the floorboards of the kitchen. I froze a half-filled baby bottle in my hand. I hadn't opened the garage door. Kyle walked into the kitchen a moment later, scratching his head, looking sleepy. "Mom's here," he yawned. "She just texted. She has the code," I asked, keeping my voice level. "Yeah, from way back," he said, opening the fridge and staring blankly at the contents. Easier than her, digging for keys. The door from the garage opened, and Arlene breezed in, bringing a gust of cold air and the overwhelming scent of white diamonds. She was carrying a bag from a bakery and wearing a coat that looked too expensive for a casual Sunday visit. "Good morning, family," she announced, setting the bag on the counter. "I brought pastries, and I thought we could go over the schedule properly now that you're settled." She didn't ask. She took off her coat and hung it on the back of a chair, then started pulling plates from the cupboard. My plates. We sat at a small breakfast table. Arlene took the head of the table, the spot where Kyle usually sat. Kyle took the side. I sat opposite him, Emma in my arms, feeding. So Arlene began stirring sugar into her coffee with a rhythmic clink, clink, clink that sounded like a metronome. "I was thinking about your work, Molly. Real estate is so demanding, isn't it? All those weekends and late nights." She took a sip, her eyes over the rim of the mug, fixed on me. "Kyle and I were talking, and we think it would be best if you took at least 6 months off. Completely. To focus on Emma. You don't want to miss these precious moments, do you?" I looked at Kyle. He was staring studiously at his Danish. "Kyle and you were talking?" I asked. "Well, yes," Kyle mumbled, finally looking up. "I mean, Mom makes a good point. It's a lot of stress, and with the, everything. Maybe a break is good." "And financially?" I asked. "My income covers the insurance and the property taxes." "Oh, we can tighten our belts." Arlene waved a hand dismissively. "Kyle is doing so well this quarter, and I can help with groceries and things. We're family. We pitch in." She smiled, a wide, benevolent expression that didn't quite cover the steel underneath. "I can manage the household schedule for a while. Grocery runs, appointments. I have a lot of free time now that I'm retired, and honestly, Molly, you look exhausted. Let us take care of you. Let us take care of you." It sounded like an offer. It felt like a cage closing. They had discussed my career, my schedule, and my finances without me. They had decided I was too tired, too stressed, too new at this to handle my own life. And they were doing it in a kitchen I paid for, eating off plates I bought in a house Kyle had legally signed away. "I see," I said. "I'll think about it." "Good," Arlene said, satisfied. "That's all we ask. Just think about it." She stayed for another hour moving through the kitchen, rearranging the spice rack because alphabetical is just easier, dear, and talking about how Kyle's cousin Sarah had raised 3 boys without ever hiring a sitter. When she finally left, I watched her car back out of the driveway from the living room window. She waved at the house as she pulled away. I turned and looked at the kitchen. The spice rack was rearranged. The spare key she had taken from the hospital was hanging on the hook by the fridge, and the keypad to the garage outside still held the code she knew. I walked over to the hook and took the key down. I held it in my hand for a moment, the metal biting into my palm. Then I slipped it into my pocket. I looked at the garage door opener on the wall. I would change the code tonight. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 6 months. "Tess," I said, when she picked up on the second ring. "Well, look who's alive." Tess's voice rasped in my ear, familiar and grounding as gravity. I heard the baby arrived. "Why am I hearing about it from Facebook instead of you? I need a favor," I said. "A big one." There was a pause. Tess Greer didn't do small talk, and she could smell a crisis from 3 miles away against the wind. "Okay," she said. "I'm listening. I need you to list a house for me," I said. Quietly. Fast. "Address 1847 Elmwood Drive," I said. Silence stretched on the line. I could hear Tess inhaling, then the slow exhale of cigarette smoke. "That's your house, Molly." "I know." "And Kyle Ka doesn't know," I said. "And he's not going to know until it's done. Does he have title?" Tess asked, her voice shifting instantly from friend to broker. "No," I said. "Sole and separate. Paid off. And I have a signed, notarized dower waiver from 2023. "You're sure about the waiver? I'm looking at the digital copy right now." "Okay," Tess said. "If the waiver holds up, you can sell it out from under him. Ohio law is clear on that." "I need to know if it will hold up," I said. Can you verify it? Give me 24 hours, Tess said. I'll call my contact at the title company. If it's clean, we list. And Tess, yeah, I want it listed by Sunday, I said. Open house at 10 a.m. Sunday at 10, Tess repeated. Why 10? Because that's when Arlene comes for brunch, I said. I could practically hear Tess grinning through the phone. I'll bring the sign, she said. And Molly, yeah, welcome back. I hung up. The house was quiet again. Kyle was in the living room watching the post-game commentary. I walked into the kitchen, took the key from my pocket, and dropped it into the junk drawer, burying it under a pile of takeout menus and rubber bands. Then I went to check on my daughter. We were going to be just fine. Monday morning arrived with a stillness that felt brittle, like thin ice over deep water. I sat in the nursery rocking chair, the baby monitor glowing softly green on the side table, and listened to the silence of the house. Emma was finally asleep for her afternoon nap, her tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythm that usually calmed me. Today it felt like a countdown. The phone in my hand felt heavy. It had been 24 hours since I called Tess. I pressed the call button. Well, I asked the moment she picked up. It's clean, Tess said. Her voice was low, clipped the way she sounded when she was closing a difficult deal. I had my guy at the title company pull the records this morning. The waiver is there. Signed, notarized, filed perfectly in 2023. Kyle Fletcher released all dower rights to 1847 Elmwood Drive. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My grip on the phone tightened. So I can sell it, I said. It wasn't a question. You can sell it, Tess confirmed. Legally, he has no claim to stop the sale. The title is clear in your name only. But Molly, she paused. Tess wasn't the type to hesitate. What happens next, right? Once this goes live on the MLS, it's public record. People talk. Neighbors see signs. He's going to find out. He'll find out when I want him to find out, I said. I control the timing. Okay, Tess said slowly. If you're sure. But you need to be ready for the fallout. This isn't just a sale. It's a declaration of war. I've already been at war for 6 months, I said. I just didn't realize I was the only one fighting. Fair enough, Tess said. I can have the listing drafted by tonight. When do you want photos? Thursday morning, I said. Kyle has an early meeting downtown. He'll be gone by 7:30. I'll be there at 8, Tess said. Have the house ready. It's always ready, I said. We hung up. I sat in the quiet nursery for another minute, watching the dust motes dance in the shaft of afternoon sunlight. War. It was a strong word. But looking at the sleeping face of my daughter, I didn't feel like a soldier. I felt like an architect, looking at a blueprint that had a fatal structural flaw and deciding calmly to demolish it before it collapsed on top of us. The next 3 days were a masterclass in deception. I moved through the house like a ghost of my former self, the obedient wife, the overwhelmed new mother. I nodded when Arlene texted about dropping off more casseroles. I smiled when Kyle came home late on Tuesday, smelling faintly of expensive bourbon and guilt claiming another late client dinner. You work too hard, I told him, keeping my voice soft. Don't burn yourself out. He looked surprised by the lack of accusation in my tone. Relieved even, he kissed my forehead and went to shower humming a tune under his breath. While he slept, I worked. My laptop became my command center. I pulled the comparable sales for our neighborhood, the comps. 3 houses on Elmwood had sold in the last 6 months. A renovated colonial down the street went for $405,000. A smaller ranch 2 blocks over for $389. Our house was better. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, hardwood floors, throughout a fully updated kitchen with quartz countertops I had picked out myself 2 years ago. The roof was new. The HVAC was 3 years old. I typed the numbers into my spreadsheet. The market was hot, inventory was low. A well-priced house in this school district wouldn't last a weekend. I drafted the listing description at 2 a.m. on Wednesday, sitting on the floor of the bathroom with the door locked and the shower running to mask the sound of my typing. Charming 4-bedroom colonial in the heart of the sought-after Elmwood district. Meticulously maintained. I deleted meticulously maintained. It sounded stale. Immaculate condition. Turnkey ready. Better. I priced it at $412,000. Aggressive but not unreasonable. Enough to signal confidence, enough to make a statement. When I was done, I saved the file to a hidden folder labeled Tax Documents 2024 on my private cloud drive. Then I closed the laptop, turned off the shower, and went back to bed. Kyle didn't stir. Thursday morning dawned cold and bright. Kyle left at 7:15 complaining about traffic and promising to be home early for dinner. I kissed him goodbye at the door, watched his car disappear around the corner, and immediately went to work. By 7:45, the house looked like a magazine spread. I cleared every counter. I hid the baby bottles, the burp cloths, the stack of mail on the console table. I fluffed pillows. I opened every curtain to let the morning light flood in. At 8 o'clock sharp, Tess's car pulled into the driveway. She walked in, carrying her professional camera gear and a tripod, looking around the living room with a critical eye. "You really do live like this?" she asked. "It helps when you don't have anyone messing it up," I said. Tess nodded. "Right, let's do this fast." We moved through the house with practiced efficiency. Tess knew exactly which angles made a room look bigger, which lighting softened the edges. I moved furniture out of shots, smoothed bedspreads, angled chairs. We worked in silence, a rhythm born of years of working together on other people's houses. When we got to the kitchen, Tess paused. She looked at the keypad by the door to the garage. "You changed the code," yet she asked, adjusting her lens. "Tonight," I said, "after he goes to sleep." "Good," she said. She snapped a photo of the breakfast nook, the morning sun heating the table perfectly. "This kitchen is going to sell the house, you know. That island is a major selling point." "I know," I said. "I designed it." "And the master bath, ready," I said. "Towels are fresh." We finished in 45 minutes. Tess packed up her gear. "I'll have the photos edited by tonight," she said. "Listing can go live whenever you say the word." "Sunday morning," I said. 10 a.m. "Right," Tess said. "The brunch." She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that morning. "You okay, Molly?" "I'm fine," I said. "Why?" "Because most women in your position would be throwing clothes on the lawn or crying into a pint of ice cream," Tess said. "You're staging your house for an open house." "Crying doesn't pay the mortgage," I said. "Selling the house does." Tess smiled a sharp, approving expression. "That's my girl. I'll send you the draft link tonight." She left. I locked the door behind her. I stood in the perfectly staged living room. It looked beautiful. It looked empty. It looked like someone else's life. And for the first time, I realized that I wasn't just selling a house. I was liquidating a memory. Friday and Saturday passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. I checked the draft listing a dozen times. The photos were stunning. The description was tight, professional, compelling. Status draft. The button to publish was grayed out, waiting for my command. "Arlene called on Saturday afternoon. Just confirming for tomorrow, dear." 10 o'clock. "Carl's cousins are bringing their new baby too, so it'll be a full house." "Sounds lovely," I said. "See you then." I hung up and added a note to my calendar, showing 10 a.m. Sunday. I looked at the keypad code for the garage door one last time. 4 digits. 1980. Arlene's birth year. Kyle has said it. That night, after Kyle had fallen asleep in front of the TV, I crept out to the garage. I pressed the reset button on the motor unit, climbed down the ladder, and punched in a new code on the keypad outside. 2024. The current year. The year everything changed. I tested it. The door rumbled open. I closed it. I went back inside, locked the door from the garage to the house, and slid the deadbolt home. Then I went upstairs to my office. I opened my laptop. The listing was there on the screen. $412,000. My thumb hovered over the mouse. I could stop now. I could confront him. I could scream and cry and demand counseling. I could try to fix the unfixable, or I could press a button and burn the ships. I looked out the window at the dark street. A car drove by, slowly, its headlights sweeping across the yard where Tess would plant the for sale sign in less than 12 hours. I didn't press the button. Not yet. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, I closed the laptop. The screen went black, reflecting my own face back at me. I looked tired, but I also looked ready. Sunday morning arrived with the pale, thin light of December. I woke up at 6:30 before the alarm, my body humming with a strange electric energy. It wasn't fear. It wasn't excitement. It was the feeling of standing on a diving board, looking down at the water, knowing that once your feet leave the platform, gravity takes over. I moved through the morning routine with the precision of a surgeon prepping for an operation. Shower, dressed in dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, approachable but put together. Feed Emma. Change her into the little pink outfit Arlene had bought, the one with the ruffles that I secretly hated but knew would buy me goodwill. By 8 o'clock, the house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Kyle was still asleep. I went downstairs and started the staging process for the second time that week. I cleared the breakfast table of mail. I wiped down the granite countertops until they gleamed under the recessed lighting. I arranged fresh flowers, white lilies, simple and elegant, in a vase on the dining table. Tess had sworn they added value, a psychological trick to make buyers feel at peace. Peace. That was a funny word for what was about to happen. At 9 o'clock, Kyle stumbled into the kitchen, scratching his stomach, his hair sticking up in tufts. "You're up early," he mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. "Smells good in here. Arlene is coming," I said. "And your cousins." "Right. Brunch." He poured a mug and leaned against the counter, watching me wipe a smudge off the stainless steel fridge. "You know you don't have to go all Martha Stewart for them. It's just family." "I like things to look nice," I said. He chuckled, a sound that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. "That's my Molly, always perfect." He didn't mean it as a compliment. He meant it as a categorization. Molly, the organizer. Molly, the planner. Molly, the one who handled the details so he didn't have to. At 9:45, I went to the front window. A silver sedan pulled up to the curb across the street. Tess. She didn't get out. She just sat there, engine idling, waiting for my signal. At 9:58, the rumble of the garage door opening vibrated through the floor. My stomach dropped. I had changed the code. I had reset the keypad, but the door was opening. I froze, staring at the door that led to the garage. The heavy insulated steel door that was supposed to be my barrier. Then I heard the beep 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 of the keypad outside. 1980. The door stopped halfway up. Then it started going down again. A pause. Then the sound of a car door slamming. Footsteps on the concrete driveway. The doorbell rang. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. She didn't have the new code. She had tried the old one, failed, and been forced to use the front door like a guest. Victory number 1. "I'll get it," Kyle called from the living room, sounding confused. "Why is Mom ringing the bell? Maybe her hands are full," I said, following him. Kyle opened the front door. Arlene stood there, looking flustered, holding a large casserole dish covered in foil. Behind her stood Kyle's cousin, Sarah, and her husband, Mike, both looking a bit bewildered by the formal greeting. "The garage door wouldn't open," Arlene said, bypassing hello entirely. I punched the code in 3 times. "Is the battery dead?" "Must be," Kyle said, taking the casserole. "Come on in. Sorry about that." Arlene bustled past him, her eyes sweeping the room. She paused when she saw the fresh flowers, the clear surfaces, the lack of baby clutter. "Well," she said, "someone's been busy." She didn't sound impressed. She sounded suspicious. "Just tidying up," I said. "Welcome, Sarah." "Mike." We moved into the living room. Arlene immediately took charge, directing Mike to put the casserole in the oven to keep warm, telling Sarah to set her diaper bag in the corner, not on the couch. Kyle sank into his recliner, the king of his castle, letting the women swirl around him. I sat in the armchair by the window, Emma in my lap. The clock on the mantel read 10 o'clock exactly. "So," Arlene said, settling onto the sofa and smoothing her skirt. "About this schedule, Molly. I was thinking we should really lock down the Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sarah can commit to those, right, Sarah?" Sarah nodded, vaguely looking tired. "Sure, Aunt Arlene." "And I can handle Mondays and Wednesdays," Arlene continued. "Fridays? Well, Kyle, maybe you can leave work a bit early on Fridays. Help Molly get a jump on the weekend." Kyle nodded, his eyes on the TV where the pregame show was starting. "Yeah, Mom, whatever you think." See, Arlene beamed at me. "It's all settling into place. You just need to let go a little, Molly. Stop trying to control everything." "Control," I repeated. The word tasted metallic. "Yes," Arlene said, leaning forward. "You're so tense. Look at you. You're holding that baby like someone's going to snatch her. Relax. We're family. We're here to help you navigate this new chapter." Navigate. Like I was a ship lost at sea and she was the lighthouse. Speaking of navigating, Arlene said, her voice taking on that lecture tone I knew so well. I was looking at the market, Kyle. For that investment property we talked about, the rates are dropping slightly. Might be a good time to buy. Kai perked up. Really? I thought they were holding steady. No, there was a dip, Arlene said authoritatively. Real estate is all about timing, isn't it, Molly? You should know. She looked at me, a challenge in her eyes. I know your job better than you do, her look said. Timing is everything, I agreed. Exactly, Arlene said. Which is why I think you should focus on being a mother right now. The market will wait. Your children won't. She turned back to Kyle. Men don't always understand the pressure we're under, do they? But they need their space too. Kyle has been working so hard he needs a sanctuary to come home to, not a second job. Kyle nodded again, taking a sip of his coffee. He looked comfortable. He looked safe. He looked like a man who believed the world revolved around his comfort. Sometimes, Arlene said, patting Kyle's knee, men just need a little grace, a little understanding. You're too hard on him, Molly. He's doing his best. I looked at Kyle, at the slight smile playing on his lips as his mother defended him. It was a smile of relief, of absolution. He wasn't my partner. He was her son. And in this room, in this house, I was the outsider. You're right, I said. I have been too hard on him. Arlene blinked, surprised by my capitulation. Well, good. I'm glad you see that. I see a lot of things clearly now, I said. I stood up. I need to check on something in the bathroom. Excuse me? Take your time, Arlene said, turning back to Sarah. Now about that casserole recipe. I walked out of the living room, down the hall, and into the master bathroom. I closed the door and locked it. The silence was sudden and absolute. I turned on the faucet, letting the water run cold and steady into the sink. It created a curtain of white noise blocking out the murmur of voices from the living room. I sat down on the closed lid of the toilet. My laptop was hidden in the vanity cabinet, wrapped in a towel. I pulled it out and set it on my knees. The screen glowed blue in the dim light. I logged in. The real estate dashboard appeared. Listing 1847 Elmwood Drive. Status draft. Price $412,000. I stared at the screen. My hands were steady. My heart was beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I reviewed the details one last time. Photos perfect. The kitchen gleamed. The living room looked inviting. The master bedroom was a sanctuary of calm. Description: stunning 4-bedroom colonial. Updated kitchen. Hardwood floors. Move-in ready. Documents deed. Mortgage payoff. Dower rights waiver. All uploaded. All verified. I looked at the button labeled Publish. It was a small gray rectangle, a collection of pixels, but it had the weight of a guillotine blade. Pressing it meant there was no going back. It meant the end of the polite fiction we had been living. It meant the end of Sunday brunches and passive-aggressive comments about my parenting. It meant the end of being the good wife who kept the peace at the cost of her own sanity. But not pressing it meant staying. It meant accepting that my life was something to be managed by a committee of people who didn't respect me. It meant raising Emma in a house where her mother's voice was the quietest one in the room. I thought of Kyle's smile in the living room, the relief, the entitlement. I thought of Arlene's key on the hook. I thought of the video on my phone, 4 minutes and 23 seconds of a man drawing hearts in the air for someone else, while his wife lay bleeding in a hospital bed. I wasn't doing this out of anger. Anger burns hot and fast. This was cold. This was structural. This was a renovation of my life, down to the studs. Molly Arlene's voice drifted through the door, muffled by the running water. Everything all right in there? Sarah needs the bathroom soon. Just a minute, I called out. My voice was steady. I looked down at the laptop. Are you sure you want to publish this listing? The screen asked. Yes. I moved the cursor. I clicked. A spinning wheel appeared. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Then a green banner flashed across the top of the screen. Success! Your listing is now live on the MLS. It will syndicate to Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com within minutes. I sat there for a moment, watching the green bar fade. It was done. My house was for sale. I closed the laptop. I put it back in the vanity, wrapped in the towel. I turned off the faucet. The silence returned, but it felt different now. It wasn't empty. It was charged. I stood up, checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same. Same dark hair pulled back, same gray sweater. But my eyes looked different. They looked awake. I unlocked the door and walked back out into the hallway. The voices in the living room were louder now. Laughter. The clink of coffee mugs. I walked in. Arlene looked up from the sofa. "There you are," she said. "We were just saying Kyle really should look into a new car. The SUV is getting old, and with the baby. We can talk about cars later," I said, sitting back down in my chair. I picked up my coffee. It was still warm. "Everything okay?" Kyle asked, glancing at me. I smiled at him, a small, genuine smile. "Everything is fine," I said. "Actually better than fine." "Good," Arlene said, pleased. "See, a little break helps. Now, Sarah, tell them about the preschool waiting lists." "You have to get on them now, Molly, or you'll never get a spot." I nodded along as Sarah launched into a story about waiting lists and tuition fees. I let the conversation wash over me. They didn't know. They sat there, eating my pastries, drinking my coffee, planning my future, completely unaware that the ground beneath their feet had just shifted. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once, twice. I pulled it out discreetly, shielding the screen. A text from Tess. "Listing is live. 2 saves on Zillow in the first 3 minutes." My phone is already blowing up. "You ready for this?" I typed back one word. "Ready." I slipped the phone back into my pocket and took a sip of coffee. It tasted rich and dark and perfect. Molly, Arlene asked. "Are you listening?" I said. "The Montessori school is the best option." "I heard you," I said. "Montessori. Good to know." The morning dragged on. Arlene critiqued the dust on the baseboards. Kyle talked about his fantasy football league. Sarah complained about her husband snoring. At 11:30, Arlene finally stood up. "Well," she said, brushing crumbs from her skirt, "we should let these new parents rest." "Come on, Sarah. Mike." "Thanks for coming," Kyle said, standing up to hug his mother. "Great seeing you." "We'll be back Tuesday," Arlene promised, looking at me. "Remember the schedule. 7 a.m. "I remember," I said. She hugged me a stiff, perfumed embrace. "You're doing great, sweetie. Just listen to us." "We know best. Drive safe," I said. I walked them to the door. I watched them get into their cars. I watched them drive away. When the last car turned the corner, I closed the front door and locked it. I walked into the kitchen. The spare key Arlene had returned, the one she had made a show of giving back, sat on the counter. I picked it up. I walked to the junk drawer, opened it, and dropped the key inside. Then I went to the garage door keypad manual I had hidden in the pantry. I pulled out the slip of paper where I had written the old code. Arlene's birth year. I tore it into tiny pieces and dropped them into the trash can. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tess. 3 showing request for tomorrow, 1 for Tuesday, and I have an agent asking if we'll look at preemptive offers. I smiled. "Who's texting you?" Kyle asked, walking into the kitchen and grabbing a beer from the fridge. "It's Sunday." "No work, remember, just spam," I said. He popped the tap on the beer. "Mom was right, you know. You seem more relaxed today. Maybe the break is a good idea." "Maybe," I said. He took a swig of beer and wandered back to the living room. Game's back on. I stood in the kitchen listening to the TV announcers. 48 hours. That was my estimate. 48 hours until the first offer came in. Monday passed in a blur of secret coordination. I took Emma for a long walk. That was actually a meeting with Tess in her car parked 3 blocks away. We went over the showing schedule. I confirmed that I could get Kyle out of the house for an hour on Tuesday evening for a date night while Tess showed the place to a motivated buyer. Tuesday night, I told Kyle I wanted to try a new Italian place across town. He grumbled about missing the pregame analysis, but agreed. We left at 6. Tess texted me at 6:15. In the house. We ate pasta. Kyle talked about his boss. I nodded and smiled. At 7:30, Tess texted, "All clear. Lights off. Lockbox secure." We got home at 8. The house looked exactly as we left it. Kyle didn't notice the faint scent of a stranger's perfume in the hallway or the fact that the throw pillow on the couch was angled slightly differently. Wednesday morning, I was in the bathroom when my phone rang. It was Tess. Don't react, she said. Just listen. Okay, I whispered. We have an offer. My heart hammered against my ribs. Already, it's the couple from last night, the Hollisters, Jake and Renee, young first-time buyers pre-approved for $450. They love it. The number I asked. $405,000, Tess said. I let out a breath. It was $7,000 under asking. Lower than I wanted, I said. It's a starting point, Tess said. But here's the thing. I have another agent circling. An investor from Dayton. Cash buyer. He's looking at the listing right now. Cash, I repeated. Cash meant speed. Cash meant no appraisal contingencies. Cash meant closing fast. What do? I asked. We wait, Tess said. Give it 4 hours. Let the investor know there's an offer on the table. Create a bidding war. Can we risk losing the Hollisters? They're in love with the kitchen, Tess said. They're not going anywhere. Trust me. Okay, I said. Wait, I hung up. I flushed the toilet for cover and walked out. Kai was still sleeping. 4 hours later, I was in the nursery changing a diaper when the phone buzzed again. Offer #2 is in. I picked up the phone. Investor, $410,000, all cash. No inspection. Can close in 21 days. 21 days. That would put closing on December 28th. Before the new year. Before Kyle's next business trip. Before Arlene's next scheduled intervention. I texted back. Accepted. Are you sure? Tess asked. The Hollisters might come up to full price if we counter. I don't care about the $2,000 I typed. I care about the 21 days. Understood, Tess replied. Drafting the acceptance now. I put the phone down on the changing table. Emma cooed up at me, kicking her legs. We're going to move, I whispered to her. Somewhere quiet, somewhere just ours. That night after dinner, Arlene called. Molly, she chirped. You'll never guess what I saw. My blood ran cold. Had she seen the sign? Tess had put it up an hour ago, tucked near the bushes, but visible if you looked. What? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I was looking at Zillow, just browsing for that investment property for Kyle, and I saw the house 2 doors down from you listed, the blue one. Oh, I said, the Miller's place. Yes, they're asking $390. Can you believe that? For that box is a seller's market, I said. Well, Arlene sniffed. It makes me think about your value. I asked Kyle and he thinks your house would appraise for maybe $380. Conservative estimate. $380, I repeated. Yes. So don't get any ideas about sitting on a gold mine, she laughed. You're doing fine, but let's be realistic. Realistic, I said. Anyway, just thought it was interesting. See you Tuesday, she hung up. I looked at my phone screen. The email notification from DocuSign was waiting. Purchase agreement 1847 Elmwood Drive. Price $410,000. Status pending. $380,000. Conservative estimate. She didn't know. Kyle didn't know. They were playing a game of checkers, moving pieces around a board they thought they controlled. And I had just flipped the table. I opened the DocuSign app. I scrolled through the contract. Standard terms. Cash sale. Closing date December 28th. I signed with my finger on the screen. Molly A. Fletcher. I hit finish. Document completed. I put the phone down. I walked into the living room. Kyle was asleep on the couch, the remote control resting on his chest. I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't evil. He was just absent. He was a man who had decided he could have everything he wanted without paying for any of it. He wanted the wife, the kid, the house, the mother who doted on him, the freedom to flirt with other women, the comfort of never being challenged. And for 4 years I had let him. But the lease was up. I turned off the TV. The room went dark. I walked upstairs to bed. For the first time in 6 months, I didn't check the baby monitor 3 times. I didn't worry about the noise from the street. I closed my eyes and slept. The countdown had begun. 21 days, the second Sunday arrived with the deceptive quiet of a hurricane's eye. I had been up since 7 o'clock, moving through the house like a phantom. The staging process was becoming second nature now. Clear the counters. Fluff the pillows, hide the diaper genie, wipe down the stainless steel until it mirrored my own exhaustion back at me. Tess had texted me at 9:45. Sign is in the ground. Hidden behind the hydrangeas like you asked, but visible if you're looking for it. Buyers arriving in 15. I stood in the kitchen gripping my coffee mug with both hands. The ceramic was warm, but my fingers felt like ice. Kyle was still asleep upstairs. Arlene was due any minute for the usual Sunday brunch. And in 12 minutes, a pair of strangers named Jake and Renee Hollister were going to ring my doorbell, expecting a tour of their potential new home. The timing was tight, insanely tight. But it was the only way. At 10 o'clock, exactly the front doorbell rang. Not the garage door rumble, the doorbell. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Arlene had tried the old garage code, her birth year, and failed. Again. "I'll get it," Kyle yelled from upstairs, sounding groggy. "I got it," I called back, my voice steady. I walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass, I could see a silhouette. It was Arlene. She was alone this time, holding a Tupperware container that looked suspiciously like last week's casserole reheated. I opened the door. "The garage opener is broken again," Arlene announced without preamble, breezing past me into the foyer. "Honestly, Molly, you need to get that fixed. It's inconvenient." I know, I said, closing the door behind her. "Kyle's been meaning to look at it." Arlene sighed loud and dramatic. "Well, tell him to hurry up. I don't like standing on the porch in this cold." She marched into the kitchen, setting her dish on the counter with a thud. "Where's he?" "Still sleeping. He's getting up," I said. "Coffee is fresh." Arlene poured herself a mug, eyeing the pristine kitchen. "You're keeping things very tidy." Lately, she observed, sounding more accusatory than complimentary. "Almost too tidy. It doesn't look lived in." "I like it clean," I said. She hummed a non-committal sound that meant she didn't believe me but didn't care enough to argue. "Well, Sarah and Mike aren't coming today. Little Timmy has a cold." "So? It's just us." "Just us," I repeated. "Just us. And the buyers." My phone buzzed in my pocket. 2 minutes out, Tess texted. "Everything okay?" Arlene asked, noticing me check the screen. "Fine," I said. "Just a spam text." Kyle came downstairs, then wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that had seen better days. He yawned, stretching his arms over his head. "Morning, Mom," he said, giving Arlene a peck on the cheek. "What's for breakfast?" "Casserole," Arlene said brightly. "And I brought some of those scones you like from the bakery." "Nice," Kyle said, grabbing a scone. He leaned against the counter, chewing happily. "So, Molly, you seem—" He trailed off, looking around the kitchen. "Seem what I asked?" "I don't know. Different. Calm. Calm is good," Arlene said decisively. "It means she's finally settling into motherhood." The doorbell rang again. Kyle stopped chewing. Arlene frowned. "Who's that?" Kyle asked. "We weren't expecting anyone else, were we?" "No," I said. "I'll get it." I walked to the front door. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. This was it. The point of no return. I opened the door. Tess stood there looking professional and polished in a blazer, holding a clipboard. Behind her stood a young couple, Jake and Renee Hollister. They looked nervous, excited, holding hands. Renee was clutching a printout of the listing. "Good morning," Tess said, her voice projecting clearly into the house. "We have a showing scheduled for 10 o'clock. I opened the door wider. "Please come in." Behind me, I heard the distinctive click of Arlene's heels on the hardwood floor. "Who is it, Molly?" she called out. Tess stepped into the foyer, ushering the buyers in. "Hello," she said to Arlene, who had appeared in the hallway, looking confused. "I'm Tess Greer. I'm the listing agent. These are the potential buyers for 1847 Elmwood Drive." The silence that followed was absolute. It sucked the air out of the room. Arlene stared at Tess, then at the buyers, then at me. "Buyers," she repeated, the word tasting strange in her mouth. "What are you talking about? This is my son's house." "Actually," Tess said smoothly, "it's Molly Fletcher's house, and is currently listed for sale." Kaya appeared behind Arlene, wiping crumbs from his mouth. "What's going on?" Tess turned to him. "Mr. Fletcher, I assume you're aware of the showing today," Kyle blinked. He looked from Tess to the buyers to me. His face went slack with shock. "Showing," he said. "For what?" "For the house," Tess said, her patience clearly thinning. "As per the listing agreement signed by the owner." Arlene stepped forward, her face flushing pink. "Now, hold on a minute. This is a mistake." You have the wrong address. 1847 Elmwood Tess recited. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Listed at $412,000. She held up the listing sheet. It had a photo of our house on it. Arlene snatched the paper from her hand. She stared at it. Her hands began to shake. "Molly," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "What is this?" I looked at her. I looked at Kyle. I looked at the young couple standing awkwardly in my foyer, witnessing the implosion of a family they didn't know. "It's a listing," I said. "The house is for sale." "For sale," Kyle exploded. "Since when? You can't just sell the house, Molly. It's our house." "Actually," I said, my voice calm and steady in the chaos, "it's my house. Sole and separate property. Acquired before marriage. Mortgage paid by me." "But we're married," Kyle shouted. "You can't sell a marital home without my consent. In Ohio," I said, quoting the statute I had memorized, "a spouse has dower rights. Unless they've released them." Kyle stared at me. "What, 2 years ago," I said, "when I paid off the mortgage, you signed a waiver. A dower rights release. It's filed with the county. Notarized." He looked blank. Completely blank. "I didn't sign anything like that," he stammered. "You did," I said. "You were watching football. I asked you to sign a paper for the title company. You complained about missing the kickoff, remember?" The color drained from his face. He remembered. I could see it in his eyes. The memory of a nuisance task, a signature given without reading, a moment of carelessness that had just cost him his home. You tricked me," he whispered. "I asked you to sign a legal document," I said. "You're an adult. You signed it." Arlene stepped between us, her face twisted with fury. "This is insane. You cannot do this. I will call my lawyer. I will call the police." "Call them," I said. "The deed is in my name. The waiver is valid. The listing is live." I turned to Tess. "Please show Mr. and Mrs. Hollister the living room. It has excellent natural light." Tess nodded, cool as a cucumber. "Right this way, folks." She led the stunned couple past my husband and mother-in-law, who stood frozen in the hallway like statues in a museum of bad decisions. "Molly," Kyle said, his voice trembling. "We have a baby. Where are we supposed to go?" "You have 17 days until closing," I said. "I suggest you start looking." Arlene grabbed Kyle's arm. "Don't listen to her. She's having a breakdown. Postpartum psychosis. We'll get this annulled." "It's not psychosis, Arlene," I said. "It's real estate law." I walked into the kitchen, leaving them in the hall. I could hear Tess in the living room pointing out the crown molding to the Hollisters. "The floors were refinished just last year," she was saying. "Original oak." I leaned against the counter, my legs shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. Kyle stormed into the kitchen a moment later, Arlene on his heels. "Stop this," he hissed. "Tell them to leave. Right now." "I can't," I said. "They have an appointment." "I don't care about their appointment," he shouted. "This is my house. I live here. You live here." I agreed. "But you don't own it." "There's a difference." Arlene slammed her hand on the counter. "You are a cruel, vindictive woman, Molly Fletcher. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done to me, I corrected. There's a difference there too." "We took you in," she shrieked. "We treated you like family. You treated me like an incubator and a maid," I said quietly. "And now the lease is up." From the living room, I heard Renee Hollister say, "Oh, Jake, look at this fireplace. It's perfect." "It is," Tess agreed. "Gas insert very efficient." Kyle looked at the door to the living room, then back at me. He looked trapped. He looked like a man who had woken up in a nightmare he couldn't control. "Molly," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Please, let's just talk." "Send them away and we can talk." "We can talk," I said. "But they're staying. They might buy the house." "I won't let them," Kyle yelled. I'll refuse to sign. I'll squat. You'll have to evict me." "I don't need your signature," I reminded him. "An eviction takes 30 days. Closing is in 21. You can do the math." He stared at me, hatred dawning in his eyes where confusion had been. "You planned this. You planned this whole thing." "Yes," I said. "I did. While I was sleeping, while you were sleeping, while you were watching TV, while you were on your business trips." He flinched. The reference landed. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. "Texas," I said. "The partners don't call at midnight, Kyle. And they don't send heart emojis. The blood drained from his face completely this time. He looked like a ghost. Arlene looked between us, sensing a new current in the water. What is she talking about, Kyle? Nothing, Kyle said quickly. She's imagining things. Hormones. I have the video, I said. From the hospital. 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Kyle closed his eyes, defeated. Get out, Arlene hissed at me. Get out of this house. It's my house, I said. You get out. Tess walked into the kitchen, then the Hollisters trailing behind her. They looked awkward, sensing the tension but trying to be polite. The kitchen is lovely, Renee said tentatively. Is that granite quartz? I said, smiling at her. Installed in 2020. It's heat resistant and doesn't stain. Wonderful, Renee said. She looked at Kyle, who was leaning against the fridge, looking like he wanted to vomit. Hi, sorry to intrude. Kyle didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. We'll take a look at the backyard now, Tess said, steering them toward the sliding glass door. The deck was restained last summer. They went outside. Arlene watched them go, her chest heaving. This isn't over, Molly. You think you're so smart with your paperwork. But families stick together. And you are alone. I have Emma, I said. And I have the deed. That's enough company for me. We'll see, Arlene said. We'll see what the judge says about a mother who makes her child homeless. Emma won't be homeless, I said. She'll be with me. In a house bought with the proceeds from this one. Arlene grabbed her casserole dish from the counter. Come on, Kyle, we're leaving. But Mom, Kyle started. We're leaving, she commanded. We need to call Bradley, immediately. Bradley Crane, the family lawyer. I knew the name. Good idea, I said. Call Bradley. Ask him about Ohio Revised Code, Section 5301. Arlene glared at me one last time, a look of pure distilled venom. Then she grabbed Kyle's arm and dragged him toward the front door. I heard the door slam, then the sound of Arlene's car starting in the driveway. I stood alone in the kitchen. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the edge of the counter. But I was standing. Tess came back in a few minutes later, alone. They loved it, she said. They're going to write an offer. Good, I said. My voice sounded thin, like wind through reeds. You okay? Tess asked, looking at me closely. I think so, I said. That was intense, Tess said. Your mother-in-law is a piece of work. You have no idea, I said. And Kyle, he knows now, I said. He knows everything. Good, Tess said. Let him scramble. We have a house to sell. She squeezed my shoulder. I'll call you when the offer comes in. Lock the doors. I will, I said. She left. I walked to the front door and engaged the deadbolt, then the chain. Then I went to the garage door and unplugged the opener from the ceiling outlet just in case. I was safe. For now. But I knew this was just the opening salvo. Arlene wouldn't go down without a fight. And Kyle. Kyle was cornered. A cornered animal is dangerous. My phone buzzed. Offer incoming. $405K. I stared at the screen. It had begun. The house felt different after they left. Lighter somehow, but also charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. I spent the afternoon pacing the living room, Emma strapped to my chest in the carrier, her warmth a steady anchor against my ribs. At 3:47 p.m., the email from DocuSign landed in my inbox. Purchase agreement executed. The investor from Dayton had signed. Closing date, December 28th. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the document. It was done. Legally bindingly done. But legal reality and emotional reality are two different countries, and I was currently living in the demilitarized zone between them. Kyle didn't come home for dinner. He didn't text. He didn't call. At 8 p.m., I put Emma down in her crib. I double-checked the locks on the front door, the back door, and the unplugged garage door opener. I sat in the kitchen with a glass of water waiting. At 9:15, the front door rattled. A key turned in the lock. My stomach dropped. I had forgotten. I had changed the garage code. I had taken Arlene's spare key, but Kyle still had his own key. Of course he did. He lived here. The door swung open. Kyle walked in. He looked wrecked. His eyes were red-rimmed, his tie loosened, his shirt rumpled. He smelled of scotch and expensive leather, the scent of his lawyer's office. He stopped in the foyer, looking at me, sitting at the kitchen table. You're still here, he said, his voice flat. I live here, I said. For now. He walked into the kitchen, pulling a chair out and sitting down heavily opposite me. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked defeated and terrified. I saw Bradley, he said. Bradley Crane, the family shark. And he says you're right. Cal let out a short, bitter laugh. About the waiver. He pulled the copy from the county records. It's there, my signature, notarized. He looked up at me, his expression pleading. Molly, I don't remember signing it. I swear to God, I know you don't, I said. You were watching the Bengals game. It was third down. He flinched. So, that's it. You tricked me into signing away my house because I was distracted. I didn't trick you, I said steadily. I asked you to sign a document that allowed me to refinance and pay off the mortgage with my money. The money my parents gave me. The money I saved. It's our house. He slammed his hand on the table, making the water in my glass tremble. We're married. Everything is 50-50. Not in Ohio, I said. Not when it's separate property. And not when you've waived your dower rights. Bradley says we can fight it, Kyle said, leaning forward. He says we can claim fraud, undue influence, or just drag it out in court until the buyers walk away. You can try, I said, but the closing is in 17 days. Can you get a court date in 17 days during the holidays? He slumped back in his chair. We both knew the answer. The courts were clogged. Judges were on vacation. Why are you doing this? He whispered. Is it because of the video? The video is part of it, I said, but it's not the reason. The reason is that I woke up. Woke up from what? From being a passenger in my own life, I said. From letting you and your mother drive the car while I paid for the gas. Mom just wants to help, Cal said automatically. The reflex was so deep it was almost pitiable. Your mother wants to control, I corrected. And you let her, because it's easier than standing up to her. She's my mother, Molly, and I'm your wife, I shot back. Or I was supposed to be. But you never really chose me, did you? You just added me to the collection. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. That's not true, he stammered. I love you. We have a family. We have a roommate situation with a baby, I said. And now the lease is up. He put his head in his hands. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? You have a job, I said. You have parents with a very large house in Indian Hill. You'll land on your feet. You always do. And Emma, he asked, looking up. His eyes were wet. You're taking my daughter. I'm taking my daughter to a home where she won't be treated like a prop in your mother's play, I said. You can see her. We'll work out a schedule. But she lives with me. Bradley says I can fight for custody, Kyle said. His voice hardened. He says, if you sell the house out from under me, it shows instability. Malice. A judge won't like that. Let him argue that, I said. And I'll play the video of you arranging a hookup while your wife was in recovery. He blanched. You wouldn't. Try me, I said. We sat in silence for a long moment. The refrigerator hummed. The wind rattled the window pane. I'm going to sleep in the guest room, Kyle said, finally standing up. Okay, I said. He walked to the door, then stopped. You really hate me, don't you? No, I said. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Then he turned and walked out. I listened to his footsteps go up the stairs. The guest room door closed. I sat there for another hour. Then I went upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and slept with the chair wedged under the handle. Thursday afternoon, I left work early to pick up Emma from daycare. The air was heavy with impending snow, the sky a bruised purple. I pulled into the driveway at 5:30. A silver Lexus was parked in front of the house. Arlene. My heart hammered. I had changed the garage code. I had taken her key. She couldn't get in. I got out of the car, unbuckling Emma's car seat. I carried her to the front door, my keys ready. The front door was locked. Good. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The house was warm. The lights in the living room were on, and sitting on my sofa holding a cup of tea was Arlene. I froze in the doorway, clutching Emma to my chest. How did you get in? I asked, my voice trembling with rage. Arlene took a sip of tea unbothered. Hello, Molly. You're home early. How did you get in? I repeated louder. The back door, she said calmly. It was unlocked. The back door, the sliding glass door to the deck. I had checked it. I was sure I had checked it. I locked it, I said. Well, it wasn't locked when I tried it, Arlene said. Lucky for me, it's freezing out there. She set the tea down on the coaster, my coaster, and stood up. We need to talk, she said. Get out, I said. Get out of my house! It's Kyle's house too, she said smoothly. And as his mother, I have a right to be here. You have no rights here, I shouted. Emma startled and began to cry. Shh, Arlene said, stepping forward. You're upsetting the baby. Give her to me. Don't touch her, I snapped, stepping back. Stay away from us. Arlene stopped, her face hardening. The mask of grandmotherly concern slipped, revealing the steel underneath. You are making a very big mistake, Molly, she said. Bradley Crane is the best divorce lawyer in Cincinnati. He will destroy you. Let him try, I said, bouncing Emma to soothe her. He's drafting a motion for emergency custody, Arlene said. Based on your erratic behavior, selling the marital home without consent, that looks like a manic episode. Or worse, financial abuse. It's not abuse to sell your own property, I said. It is when you leave your husband and child homeless, she countered. A judge will see it that way. We'll get full custody. Kyle will get the house, and you'll get weekend visitation, if you're lucky. My blood ran cold. Custody. The one thing that terrified me more than losing the house. He won't win, I said, my voice shaking. I'm her mother. I'm the primary caregiver, and Kyle is the father, Arlene said. With a stable job, a supportive family, and a mother who is a retired school administrator with impeccable standing in the community. Who do you think a judge will trust the woman having a breakdown, or the solid family unit? She smiled. It was a terrifying smile. We can make this easy, Molly, she said. Cancel the sale, take the listing down, apologize to Kyle. And maybe we can work this out. We can get you some help. Therapy. Medication. She was gaslighting me. In my own living room, rewriting reality until I was the crazy one and she was the savior. I don't need help, I said. And I'm not canceling the sale. Then you leave us no choice, Arlene said. We will take Emma, and we will take the house. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a key, a shiny silver key. I found this in the junk drawer, she said. You really should be more careful where you leave things. She placed the key on the coffee table with a deliberate click. I'll be keeping this, she said, for emergencies. She walked past me to the front door. Think about what I said, Molly. Do you really want to lose your daughter over a house? She opened the door and walked out. I slammed it behind her and threw the deadbolt. Then I ran to the back door. It was unlocked. The latch was loose. Wobbly. It looked like it had been jimmied. Or maybe I had just forgotten. Maybe the stress was getting to me. Maybe I was losing it. I sank to the floor in the kitchen, hugging Emma tight. She was crying now, loud, frightened wails. It's okay, I whispered into her hair. It's okay. Mommy's here. But I wasn't okay. I was terrified. Arlene wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. She was an enemy combatant. And she had just escalated the war to nuclear. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I called Carol Whitmore. Carol, I gasped when she picked up. She was here, in the house. Who? Carol asked sharply. Arlene. She got in the back door. She threatened me. She said they're filing for emergency custody. Okay, Carol said, her voice instantly calm and professional. Breathe, Molly. Breathe. I took a ragged breath. She said I'm erratic. That selling the house looks like a breakdown. It's a tactic, Carol said. Intimidation. They're trying to scare you into backing down. Is it true? I asked. Can they take Emma? Emergency custody requires proof of immediate danger to the child, Carol said. Are you hurting Emma? Is the house unsafe? Are you using drugs? No, of course not. Then they have no grounds, Carol said firmly. A judge won't grant an emergency order because you listed a house. That's a financial dispute, not a child welfare issue. But she said, she's lying, Molly Carol interrupted. Or she's bluffing. Either way, it doesn't matter. We stick to the facts. What do I do? Document it, Carol said. Write down everything she said. Time, date, exact words. Take a picture of the back door if it looks tampered with. And change the locks. Today. I will, I said. And Molly, yes, don't engage with her again, Carol said. If she comes back, call the police. You are the legal owner of that property. She is trespassing. Okay, I said. Okay. I hung up. I stood up, wiping my eyes. Emma had quieted down, sensing the shift in my energy. I walked to the back door. I examined the lock. It was definitely loose. I went to the junk drawer. I found a screwdriver. I tightened the screws until they groaned. Then I wedged a chair under the handle. Then I went to the front door. I checked the deadbolt again. I walked into the kitchen and saw the key on the coffee table, the one Arlene had left. Wait. She said she found it in the junk drawer, but she left it on the table. Why? To show me she could. To show me she had access. To play mind games. I picked up the key. I walked to the trash can. I threw it in. Then I took a picture of it lying among the coffee grounds. Arlene Fletcher, Thursday 5:45 p.m. Unlawful entry. Threat of custody battle. I saved the note. My phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. Molly, we need to talk. Not about the house. About us. I stared at the screen. About us. 4 years ago, that text would have made my heart flutter. Now it just looked like another trap. I didn't reply. I put the phone down. I picked up Emma. We're going to be fine, I told her. We have a plan. But as the wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the house that was no longer a home, I felt very, very small. The days leading up to December 28th were a blur of cold panic and methodical preparation. I lived in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it didn't. No police appeared at my door. No emergency custody order was served. Arlene's threats, it seemed, were just that, threats. Or maybe they were waiting. On the night of December 26th, 2 days before closing, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, that deep muffled silence of winter. Kyle was in the guest room as he had been for weeks. Emma was asleep in her crib. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by boxes. Most were taped shut, labeled in marker, kitchen, fragile books, winter clothes. One box was open. It wasn't on my packing list. I reached in and pulled out a heavy leather-bound album. The wedding album. I hadn't looked at it in 2 years. I opened it now, the stiff pages crackling in the stillness. There we were, 4 years ago, standing under a trellis of white roses at the botanical gardens. I was wearing a dress I had spent months choosing, smiling so wide my cheeks hurt just looking at it. Kyle was handsome in his tuxedo, his arm around my waist, looking at me with, when I peered closer at the photo, in the dim light of my bedside lamp, he was smiling. But his eyes weren't on me. They were looking slightly past the camera toward the crowd, toward his mother probably, or his friends, or just the future he thought he was securing. I turned the page. A candid shot of Arlene fixing Kyle's tie before the ceremony. Her hand was on his chest, possessive claiming. He was leaning into her, touch a boy seeking reassurance. I turned another page. My parents dancing. They looked happy. Relieved maybe that their daughter was settled. And then a picture of just me, standing alone on the balcony during the reception, looking out at the city lights. I remembered that moment. I had stepped away to breathe, to take it all in. I had felt lucky, chosen. I traced the line of my jaw in the photo. That girl didn't know about late nights and unanswered texts. She didn't know about dower waivers and hospital videos. She didn't know she was marrying a man who would leave her alone in a recovery room to flirt with someone else. Tears pricked my eyes. Hot, sudden tears that spilled over before I could stop them. I let them fall. I didn't wipe them away. I let myself grieve for the girl in the white dress, for the hope she had carried, for the family she thought she was building. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the wasted love, the wasted effort, the wasted years trying to fit into a shape that was never meant for me. I closed the album. The sound was final, like a door shutting. I didn't throw it across the room. I didn't burn it. I put it back in the box. Emma might want to see it someday. She deserved to know where she came from, even if where she came from was a lie. I taped the box shut. Personal. Archive. I stood up, my knees cracking. I went to the window and looked out at the street lamp, casting a pool of orange light on the snow. 2 days. Just 2 more days. Then I would be free. December 28th dawned gray and bitter cold. The temperature was 12 degrees. The sky looked like a sheet of iron. I woke up at 6 a.m. before my alarm. I showered, scrubbing my skin until it was pink, washing away the last traces of doubt. I dressed in my navy blazer, the one I wore for closings. It felt like armor. I fed Emma, packed her diaper bag, and put her in her carrier. She was awake, her big eyes taking in my focused energy. "Today's the day, baby," I whispered. "Big day." I made coffee, strong black. I drank it standing at the kitchen counter, looking around the room one last time. The counters were bare. The walls were empty, where pictures had hung. The house felt hollow, echoing. At 7:30, I heard Kyle stirring upstairs. The shower ran. I didn't wait for him. I had a meeting with Tess at 8, then the title company at 10. I wrote a note on the back of an envelope and left it on the counter. Closing is at 10 a.m. Movers arrive tomorrow at 8 a.m. Please have your things packed. Short, professional, cold. I walked out the door and didn't look back. The title company office smelled of coffee and expensive carpet. Tess met me in the lobby, looking sharp in a red coat. "Ready?" she asked, handing me a Starbucks cup. "Ready," I said. We went into the conference room. Jake and Renee Hollister were already there, sitting on one side of the long mahogany table. They looked nervous and excited, holding hands on top of the table. Their agent sat next to them. The escrow officer was at the head of the table, surrounded by stacks of paper. "Good morning," I said, taking my seat. "Molly Fletcher." "Hi, Molly," Renee beamed. "We're so excited. The house is perfect." I smiled, a real smile. "I'm glad. It's a good house." It served me well. The signing began. Page after page. Initial here. Sign here. Date here. The sound of pens scratching on paper filled the room. It was a rhythmic, soothing sound, the sound of business being transacted, the sound of a life being dismantled and rebuilt. I signed my name over and over. Molly A. Fletcher. Molly A. Fletcher. Each signature felt lighter than the last. Finally, the escrow officer pushed a heavy document toward me. "The deed. This transfers ownership," she said. "Once you sign this and we record it, the property belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Hollister." I looked at the paper, at the legal description of the property. Lot 42 Elmwood Subdivision. I picked up the pen. I didn't hesitate. I signed. "Congratulations," the officer said. "We're closed." Renee squealed and hugged Jake. They were laughing, crying a little. "Thank you so much, Molly," Jake said, shaking my hand. "We promise to take good care of it." "I know you will," I said. "Enjoy the kitchen. The light in the morning is beautiful." They left bubbling with joy. I stayed behind with Tess and the officer. "Funds have been wired," the officer said, tapping her keyboard. "You should see them in your account within the hour." I checked my banking app. Pending transaction, wire transfer, SAT. Title Escrow Incorporated. Amount $387.240. It was real. The money was mine. The house was theirs. And Kyle was a tenant in a property he no longer had a claim to. "You did it," Tess said softly. "We did it," I corrected. "Thank you, Tess. Don't mention it," she said. "Now let's get you out of there before the fireworks start." I spent the afternoon at a coffee shop, then a park, just driving around with Emma, delaying the return. I didn't want to be in the house when Kyle found my note, but I had to face him eventually. I pulled into the driveway at 5 p.m. The house was dark. My heart hammered. Was he gone? Had he packed and left in a rage? I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. "Kyle," I called out. Silence. I walked into the kitchen. My note was still on the counter, untouched. He hadn't come home. I checked his location on Find My Friends. He was at his parents' house in Indian Hill, of course, running to Mommy. I felt a surge of relief followed by a sharp spike of anxiety. If he was with Arlene, they were plotting. I locked the door. I fed Emma. I ordered takeout. At 8 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Kyle. It was Arlene. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text from Kyle. We need to talk. Now. I'm coming over. I typed back, the house is sold. Closing is done. Movers are coming tomorrow at 8 a.m. If you come over tonight to cause a scene, I will call the police. You can get your things tomorrow. He didn't reply. I waited. 9 p.m. 10 p.m. No car in the driveway. No pounding on the door. At 11 p.m., I finally went upstairs. I put Emma in her crib one last time. I lay down on the mattress on the floor. The bed frame was already disassembled. I stared at the ceiling shadows. Tomorrow, the movers would come. Tomorrow, I would leave this house forever. And tomorrow, Kyle would realize that his mother couldn't fix this. The next morning, December 29th, was chaos. The movers arrived at 7:45, two big trucks blocking the street. They were efficient, brutal in their speed. Boxes flew out the door. Furniture was wrapped and loaded. I stood in the living room with my clipboard directing traffic. Kitchen boxes on truck 1. Bedroom furniture on truck 2. At 8:15, the front door opened. Kyle walked in. He stopped Dad in the foyer. He was wearing the same clothes as yesterday. He looked unshaven, wild-eyed. He stared at the empty living room, at the movers carrying our sofa out the door, at me standing calmly with my clipboard. "What is this?" he choked out. "Moving day," I said. "I told you. You actually sold it," he whispered. "Without telling me I told you," I said, repeatedly. "You just didn't believe me." But, Mom said. He trailed off, looking around as if searching for a grown-up to explain. "Your mother was wrong," I said. "The law is the law. Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, his voice rising to a shout. "Molly, where do I live? You have 17 days, I said calmly. "The buyers take possession on the 15th. Until then, you can stay here if you want, sleeping on the floor. Or you can go to your parents." "You're kicking me out," he screamed. "Of my own house. It's not your house," I said. "It hasn't been your house since yesterday at 10 a.m. It belongs to the Hollisters now." One of the movers, a burly guy named Mike, paused with a lamp in his hand, looking at Kyle warily. "Everything okay here, ma'am?" Mike asked. "Fine," I said. "Just finalizing some details." Kyle looked at Mike. He looked at me. He looked at Emma asleep in her carrier by the wall. He slumped. The fight went out of him like air from a balloon. "How could you do this?" he whispered. "To us, there is no us, Kyle," I said, gentle. "There hasn't been for a long time. There was just you and your mother and me paying the bills." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Genuine tears this time. Tears of a man who finally understood he had lost. "I loved you," he said. "I know," I said. "But you didn't respect me." And love without respect is just a word. He stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly. Then he turned and walked out the door. He didn't take anything. He just got in his car and drove away. I watched him go. "Okay," I said to Mike. "Let's keep moving. We have a schedule to keep." By noon, the house was empty. I walked through the rooms one last time. The hardwood floors echoed with my footsteps. The sun streamed in through the bare windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was a good house. I would miss it, but I wouldn't miss the person I had been when I lived here. I walked out the front door, locked it, and dropped the key in the lockbox for the new owners. I got in my car. Emma was awake in the back seat, cooing at a toy. "Ready to go home?" I asked her. Home. It wasn't a place anymore. It was a feeling. It was the two of us safe together. I started the car and drove away. My phone buzzed. A text from Tess. "Deal closed. Funds cleared. You're free." I smiled. I turned onto the main road, merging into traffic. The sun broke through the clouds, dazzling bright on the snow. I was free. The silence in the car was absolute, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of tires on asphalt and the soft rhythmic breathing of Emma in the back seat. I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was asleep, her small head lolling to the side, oblivious to the fact that her entire world had just shifted on its axis. My phone mounted on the dashboard lit up again. Kyle Fletcher, 34 missed calls. Arlene Fletcher, 27 missed calls. Sarah Miller, 12 missed calls. Unknown number 25 missed calls. 98 calls. I didn't reach for the phone. I didn't feel the familiar spike of anxiety that usually accompanied Arlene's name flashing on the screen. Instead, I felt a strange, detached curiosity. 98 times they had tried to reach me. 98 times they had tried to demand, to plead, to threaten, to control. And 98 times I had simply let the phone ring. I remembered the first time I called Kyle after finding out I was pregnant. I had called 5 times before he picked up. He was at a bar with friends. He sounded annoyed. "What is it, Molly? I'm busy." 5 calls to reach my husband with life-changing news. 98 calls from him and his mother when they realized they had lost control. The ratio seemed about right. I tapped the screen, scrolling to my driving playlist. Defying Gravity started playing. I turned the volume up until the music filled the car, drowning out the ghosts of their voices. A text message popped up from Tess. "You, okay?" I tapped the voice-to-text button. "I'm okay. Driving to the apartment now." 3 dots danced on the screen. Then, "Good. By the way, I have a new lead. Buyers from Columbus looking for a historic renovation in Hyde Park. Cash budget. They need someone who knows the bones of old houses. You interested?" I stared at the message. 1 week after selling my own home out from under my husband, my broker was asking if I wanted to sell a house to strangers. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I thought about the way the sunlight hit the floorboards in the empty living room on Elmwood Drive. I thought about the smell of sawdust and old plaster. I thought about the feeling of walking through a space and seeing not what it was, but what it could be. That was who I was, before Kyle, before Arlene, before the silence. I tapped the microphone again. "I'm interested. Send me the details." The apartment in Kenwood was not a home. It was a temporary container for our lives. Beige walls, industrial carpet, a view of a parking lot. But it was clean. It was safe. And the name on the lease was mine, just mine. I spent the next 3 days unpacking boxes, setting up the crib, and arranging my furniture in this new, smaller geometry. Every time I placed a book on a shelf or hung a picture on a wall, I felt a little lighter. Kyle didn't come. He couldn't find me. The lease was under my LLC, a little trick Tess had taught me years ago for high-profile clients. My car was parked in a secure garage. My phone number was changed. The only way to reach me was through my lawyer. Monday morning, the first week of January, I walked into Carol Whitmore's office. The reception area smelled of expensive coffee and old paper. Carol met me at the door wearing a sharp gray suit that looked like it could cut glass. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," I said. We sat in her office surrounded by walls of legal text. On her desk sat a thick file folder. Fletcher v. Fletcher. "I have the divorce papers drafted," Carol said, opening the file. "Ohio is a no-fault state, so we're filing on grounds of irreconcilable differences. But given the circumstances, we're asking for primary custody of Emma with supervised visitation for Kyle until a guardian ad litem can assess the situation." She slid a document across the desk. "This is the financial affidavit. We've listed the proceeds from the house sale as separate property, tracing it back to your premarital funds. The dower waiver he signed makes that airtight." I looked at the numbers, the columns, the black and white accounting of a marriage ending. "And the recording?" I asked. Carol tapped a smaller folder on the side of her desk. "The hospital video. Ohio is a one-party consent state for recording conversations you're a part of. Since you were in the room, it's admissible. We're holding it in reserve. If he fights on custody, if he claims you're unstable, we play it. It establishes a pattern of neglect and emotional distance, one-party consent." I hadn't known that phrase when I pressed record in the recovery room. I had just acted on instinct. The instinct of a woman who knows she's being lied to and needs proof. I picked up the pen. It was heavy-weighted, a serious instrument for a serious act. "How long will this take?" I asked. "Uncontested 90 days, Carol said. "If he fights 6 months, maybe a year." "But Molly, he has no money. He has no house. He has his mother, but even Arlene has limits to her war chest. They're going to realize very quickly that fighting you is a bad financial decision." I signed my name. Molly Ann Fletcher. The signature flowed easily from the pen, practiced and sure. "Done," I said. Carol smiled. "Done. I'll have this filed by noon." I walked out of the office into the bright, cold January air. The wind bit at my cheeks, but it felt bracing, not harsh. Friday arrived with a clear blue sky. I pulled up to the curb in Hyde Park at 9 a.m. The house was a brick Tudor, stately and slightly crumbling with ivy crawling up the chimney and a for sale sign tilting in the frozen yard. Tess was waiting on the porch, stamping her feet against the cold. Next to her stood a couple in their 60s, David and Carol Mercer. They looked like the kind of people who read Architectural Digest for fun. "Morning," I called out, grabbing my clipboard and bag from the passenger seat. "Morning," Tess waved. "David, Carol, this is Molly. She's the best renovation expert I know." David Mercer shook my hand firmly. "Tess speaks highly of you, says you can see through walls." I laughed. "Not quite, but I know what's usually behind them." I unlocked the front door with the lockbox key. The heavy oak door swung open with a groan, revealing a dusty foyer with a stunning sweeping staircase. "Oh my!" Carol Mercer breathed. "Look at that woodwork." "Original 1920s oak," I said, walking in and tapping the newel post. "You'll need to strip the varnish, but the grain underneath is intact. And look at the floor, that's quarter sawn oak with a walnut inlay border. You don't see that anymore. We moved through the house." I pointed out the water stains on the ceiling that meant a roof leak, the knob and tube wiring that would need replacing, the load-bearing wall they could remove to open up the kitchen. It felt good. It felt right. My brain clicked into gear, assessing, calculating, solving problems that had nothing to do with my marriage and everything to do with structure and potential. In the kitchen, David stopped. "Honest opinion, Molly, is it worth the listing price?" I looked around. The cabinets were metal 1950s vintage. The linoleum was peeling, but the windows were huge, south-facing, flooding the room with light. "The comps in this neighborhood for a renovated Tudor are pushing $800,000, I said. "They're asking $450. You'll put $200 into it. That leaves you with $150,000 in equity the day you finish. If you have the cash and the patience, yes, it's worth it." David looked at his wife. Carol nodded slowly, her eyes tracing the line of the windows. "We have the patience," she said. "Then let's write it up," David said. Tess took them out to the backyard to look at the garage. I stayed in the kitchen for a moment, letting the silence settle around me. I looked out the window. David was pointing at something in the garden, and Carol was laughing, her head thrown back. They stood close together, touching easily, comfortably. 40 years of marriage, Tess had said. 40 years of weathering leaks and rewiring and storms. I felt a pang in my chest. Not jealousy, just recognition. That was what it looked like when two people built something together, when they both held the hammer, when they both signed the deed. I wasn't there yet. I might never be there. But I was here, standing in a kitchen that needed work, holding a clipboard that held the future. Tess walked back in, grinning. "They want to offer 10 over asking to lock it down. Cash." "Smart," I said. "You okay?" Tess asked, noticing my expression. "I'm working," I said. "That means I'm okay." "Fair enough," Tess said. "Let's go draft this offer." I walked out to the porch where the Mercers were waiting. "Ready?" David asked. I opened my clipboard. I pulled out my pen, the blue one I always use for contracts. "Ready," I said. Later that afternoon, back in my office, a corner of the living room in the Kenwood apartment, I got the text from Tess. "Offer accepted. We close in 30 days. I smiled. 30 days. A nice round number. I looked out the window at the gray afternoon. The traffic on Montgomery Road was heavy. People going home. People leaving work. People moving forward. My phone was silent. No missed calls. Carol Whitmore had done her job. The cease and desist letter regarding harassment had been received. Carl knew the cost of calling now. I picked up the file Tess had sent me earlier. Another listing. A bungalow in Oakley. Needs work. Good bones. I opened it. The floor plan was a mess. The kitchen was tiny. The roof needed replacing. But as I looked at the photos, I saw it. The potential. The way the light hit the front porch. The way the rooms flowed if you just took down one wall. I could fix it. I could make it something new, just like I was doing with my own life, one room at a time, one signature at a time, one day at a time. I picked up my pen and began to make notes. We spend so much of our lives building homes, don't we? Not just walls and roofs, but the invisible architecture of family trust and shared futures. We pour our savings into down payments, our weekends into renovations, and our hearts into the people who share those spaces with us. We sign papers we don't always read carefully because we trust the person handing them to us. We make sacrifices career pauses late nights, biting our tongues at Sunday dinners, believing that these are investments in a we that will shelter us when the storms come. But what happens when you realize the foundation was cracked from the start? When the person you built everything around was quietly eroding the ground beneath your feet? My story isn't just about real estate law or dower waivers. It's about the moment you wake up and realize you are the only one holding the hammer. It's about understanding that love without respect is just a word, and a marriage without partnership is just a roommate situation with a very expensive lease. I walked away with $387,240, but the real profit wasn't in the bank account. It was in the clarity. It was in knowing that I could dismantle a life that wasn't serving me and rebuild one that did brick by brick, signature by signature. So here is what I want you to take from this. Pay attention to the paperwork of your life. Read the fine print of your relationships. Notice who is signing the checks and who is just spending the money. Notice who respects your boundaries and who treats them like suggestions. And most importantly, never ever let anyone convince you that protecting yourself is an act of aggression. It is an act of survival. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you realized you were the only one invested in a relationship? Did you stay and try to fix the unfixable? Or did you find the courage to sell the house and walk away? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below, because the more we talk about the architecture of our lives, the better we get at building homes that actually stand.